On Friday night, we were in here, and me and Vanessa were kind of like tag teaming together to pray for people. And after we finished praying for somebody, I had turned around and I saw the Lord's hand so huge, and it came and just gave me to drink. And I just heard the Lord said to drink. So as I came towards his hand, I just remember dropping to my knees and just telling him, I want your drink. I want to drink from whatever it is that you have for me. So I began to drink from his hand. And as I was sitting there in the spiritual realm, I could hear people laughing and I could hear them talking. And I began, like, anger began to uprise in my spirit. And I said, and I remember telling the Lord, I said, Lord, I said, don't they know that you're here? And they're talking and they're laughing and they're not acknowledging your presence and they're not acknowledging that you're here. And I didn't understand it. And the Lord would not allow me to get off my knees to tell because I thought this was for real. I thought this was happening in the real here in the service. And the Lord would not allow me to get up. So after a while of just spending time with the Lord allowed me to get up, and it was to go give Vanessa drink. And so when I started going and praying for Vanessa to give her drink, Vanessa started praying for me. And when Vanessa started praying for me, we went into this encounter. So I'm going to let her go into some more of this.
Okay. Well, when I started praying with her, we were over here on this side, and then the Lord was like, declare over her double portion. And then I was like, double portion of what? In my mind, I'm thinking, double portion of what, Lord? And then he just said, just declare double portion. Just declare double portion. And then I kept saying, we're going to drink deep tonight, Alice. But I didn't know that she had already experienced the Lord giving her drink. And so I kept seeing the Lord giving us drink. And I kept telling her double portion, right? And this has never really happened to me. Like, I've never seen anything like the way I experienced this time, because really wasn't it really wasn't about me. It was what I saw her experience. And it was so incredible, because it was the exact same thing. Like, I saw her experience, and then she's saying the very same thing. I mean, that's crazy. And so we're over here, and then I see, I just opened my eyes, right? And then she's going like this. And then I was like, no, hombre, Lord, you better give me eyes to see. And then as I closed my eyes, right away, I saw her, the Lord was before her. And I saw colors on him, like colors I've never seen before. I mean, beautiful colors. I mean, I can't even describe them to you. And he's there, and she's going after it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Lord, does she know you're there? Does she know you're there? And then I began to see her pulling his garment and pulling it. And she's like this, and she's going after it. And his garment begins to extend. It starts coming inside, and it goes around me, and all, and I'm looking everywhere, and I'm like, shoot, it's filling everywhere, everything. And she's going, and she's pulling it down and pulling it, and it keeps going, and it doesn't stop. And she's there, and she's there, and she's there, and she's pulling, and she's pulling. And the Lord says, she's pulling me. She's pulling me in. She's pulling me in. She's pulling me in. And I was like, oh my God, Jesus. Incredible. But because I had been asking the Lord, give me eyes to see the things that I don't normally see. And I've been seeing so much activity, like so much angelic. And anyway, I don't want to get off track. And I was seeing her, and she was pulling and pulling. And then the Lord told me to tell her she's about to give birth. And I was like, no way. And he's like, she's about to give birth. And so, but then he tells me, just be silent. Because I wanted to go in there with her. I was like, I want to pull on the Lord too. And then he was like, no, you just stand back and just watch. But it's because that's what I was asking for. Just the ability to be able to see things in the spirit. And so I'm looking at, and she's there, and she's on her knees now. And I was like, Lord, does she know you're there? So I'm just praying that she was seeing what I was seeing, like, Lord, that it was a reality, right? And so she's there, and she's on her knees, and she begins to moan. And the Lord says, watch. And she begins to have a baby, like a real baby. And then like the baby comes out and the baby is full, like like just so beautiful. I'm not saying like grown, just I guess the only way I can describe this as to you is like when I had my son Uriah, he was 6 pounds and he was a dry baby, so he was real wrinkly and old looking, kind of scrawny looking. And Shiloh, nombre, she was a 9 pounder. So she looked really full and her babies looked healthy. And I say babies because when I was sitting there and she was there and she was moaning again and she was talking with the Lord and she was like, I can't. And he was like, yes, you can, Alice. You can do this. And he was like talking her through this. And at this time, he's seated down and she's there at his, like, before him. And she's talking with him and he's just talking her through it. And he's just caressing her. You can do this, Alice. You can do this. It's going to be okay. And he's telling her all these things. And I'm like, and the Lord's just like, shh, just be still. Like, just watch. And so I'm watching and then she moans, like does another noise again. And another one comes out. And I was like, Lord, how many are there? And then and same thing. When a mother has like triplets or twins, usually one baby is bigger than the other. I mean, that's normal because they need to fit inside the womb, right? Well, no, not these babies. They were full, the same size as the other one, and they were clean. They were not dirty. The Lord was just like, this is a pure, genuine thing, and it's flowing out. And then I began to see the babies, and they were so beautiful. And then she does it again. And she's like, I can't, Lord, I can't. And he's like, yes, you can. You can do this. You can do this. And he's like just talking to her so beautifully. And she's like, okay, I can do this, right? And then she'd do it again. And then she had another one. And I was like, oh, okay, Lord, this is a little much for me. The first time I want to see, and then I'm seeing all this. And I'm like, okay, what is all this? And then he wouldn't tell me. He was just like, just be quiet and just watch. And then I was like, okay. And then she was just before the Lord, and I'll go ahead and let Alice.
During this this birthing that I was having, I told my husband, because I have 2 boys, and I told my husband, I've never felt so much strong emotions and so much strife all at the same time, so deep in my body ever before. And you know how they say that women, they can give labor from their back or their belly. And I told my husband, I had babies from my belly. They were just birthed out of my belly. And I could feel this extreme presence. And as I was there, I could feel pain in my stomach. I could feel presence at the same time. And I could see the Lord. He was standing there before me. And he was just telling me, you can do this. You can do this. I'm going to give you the strength. You can birth what I'm giving you. And I just kept saying, I can't, Lord. It's just too much for me. I can't bear it. My body can't bear it. And I just began to the Lord, every time I would want to give up, the Lord would come and say, you can do it. Just like Vanessa was saying, you can do it. Come on, I'm going to give you the strength to keep going. And so every time I would yell really loud, and I would feel my stomach push, like when you have a baby. And as I was doing that, she was seeing the release of the babies come out. And Vanessa kind of lined it up a bit, but Vanessa said, Alice, I saw everything. I saw umbilical cords. I saw the whole bit, like when you see a baby being birthed in a hospital. And she says, and it was crazy. So when after that, I had started, after I felt like I was relieved from giving birth, I started crawling again. And all of a sudden, I understood what all that voices that I was hearing, the laughter and the people talking, I understood what it meant. And the Lord took me to the resurrection, where he was crucified. And I was there, and I remember being on my knees, and I remember the Lord speaking to me loudly. And he says, look at me. I want you to look at me. And I kept telling him, I wanted to look at him so bad, I wanted to turn my face and I wanted to see the Lord so very badly, but I couldn't. I couldn't, and I was just falling apart because it was too much for me to look at him sitting there on that cross, and I could feel all this pain. And the best way I can describe it to you is when a when somebody loses their son or their daughter. I've never had that happen to me, but or you lose your mom or your dad, and there's just this deep pain that comes. That's the kind of pain I was feeling in my body. And I just remember telling the Lord, I said, I can't, Lord. And the enemy, he came up real quick. And he knew that I was in a weak situation, that I couldn't look at the Lord. And he says, yeah, look at your God. He's sitting there on the cross. Look at him. And inside me, I got so angry. And I said, really? Because he's the one that's going to save the world. He's the one that's going to do everything for us. He's the one that's going to conquer all. He's the King of Kings. And I just started declaring these things about the Lord to the enemy because it made me so mad inside. And the Lord says, don't look at him. Don't look at him and don't listen to him. And I heard him really loud, voice just say, look at me, Alice. Look at me. And he said it 3 times. He said, look at me, Alice. Look at me. And I just kept crying and telling him I couldn't look at him. And during the whole process, as I'm there and he's telling me to look at him, I had given some blood not too long ago. And when I went to this place to give blood, you can smell blood in the air. And when I was there in the spirit here, I could smell, a strong smell of blood. And it was the blood that was dripping from his body that I was smelling. And I could see the blood everywhere. And the Lord began to speak to me about that. And he says, see, people, they go give blood and people accept blood in centers because that's the same blood that ran through me. And there's power in that blood. And that blood, they use it to go heal things and to put back in people's bodies. And they do all these things. And he says, but that's the same blood that ran through my veins when I was there on the cross. And so I was just there with the Lord. And when I finally could just even glimpse at him, I looked at his eyes. And the best way I could describe his eyes were they were huge, big. And they were diamonds. And they were glistening so bright that I couldn't bear to even look at them. I barely just glimpsed from the side of my face just to get even a glimpse of it. And it was so hard for me because I wanted to see him so bad. And I just couldn't bear it. My body couldn't bear it. I tried so hard and I just couldn't. I just couldn't. It's really, really, really hard. And I've been messed up since Friday. Every time I hear or I'm with the Lord, I get totally undignified before his throne because I remember growing up and my mom, she used to have all these crosses laying around in our house with the Lord sitting on them. And I really never thought about that. But I was thinking about it the day after, and I said, man, Lord, people put up these crosses with you laying on them like it's not a big deal, like it's a decoration in their home. And I said, but you're not a decoration. You're more than just a decoration sitting on a wall. Your cuts were deep, and your blood was strong when you shed it that day. That I don't think people realize how deep his love is for us. And I believe that's why even God couldn't shun his face on Jesus when he came all battered and bruised, because it was just too much. It was just too much to bear. It was too much to see his son go through that.